Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Breakdown, the only fantasy football podcast where your host, Wayne Cavati, will have to do eye drops halfway through the show because of my eye infection. So don't mind me when you see me bombing away. We're back for another week of fantasy football, and we do have regular feedback, but we also have paper bag fee for all you fans from last week. He'll be back every week. He'll make an appearance. Um, Joining us from North Carolina, as always, is Mr. Dunton. Dunton, welcome back.
How are you?
I have an infected eye. I told you that. I'm not doing very well.
Other than the infect, hey, well, you're doing better than Antonio Brown's publicist is doing. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's just a nightmare. And over there, welcome back from your 1 week off. Fanduel Fee, welcome back.
Yeah, happy to be back. Glad I could take over for paper bag fee.
He did a great job, though. You got to hand it to him.
So he was a great bye-week replacement.
so I can at least speak for myself and get my 2 cents in.
Well, let's get right to it because there's a lot to talk about this week. We're getting the injury. We're in week 5. The injuries are piling up. I don't know, it's still early season overreaction, but like the busts and the breakouts are starting to form themselves. So we got a lot to talk about. And that's a perfect time to jump right into buy it or bullshit. Getting things started last week in Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin finally woke up from a 4-week nap and realized it was time to pull the plug on Mitch Trubisky. And we saw Kenny Pickett. The good was that he rushed for 2 touchdowns, right? Like he looked good on getting those in, and he wasn't scared to just bully his way in there. The bad was he looked at George Pickens and not much else, and he only threw for 120 yards. And the ugly was he threw for 3 interceptions against the Jets. So buy it or BS. Kenny Pickett is a must-add in regular redraft leagues this week. Let's go. Fee, you first.
BS. And it's because, listen, he will be good as an NFL starting quarterback. For fantasy, he will not be good. The Steelers are not a good team, okay? And he's going to have growing pains just like every other rookie quarterback there is. You saw it to begin with. Yeah, he flashed signs of goodness, and he actually may bring fantasy goodness to some of the players on his team, like George Pickens. But Kenny Pickett himself, for fantasy, at least not this year, is going to be a good pickup.
Right. And that's the key this year, right? Like if you were talking dynasty leagues or a keeper league, yeah, go get him now. But okay. So Dutton, what do you think? Buy it or BS?
It's BS. I mean, they could have Ben Roethlisberger, and I think it would be the same. Like the Steelers are, nobody wants to say the word, but they're rebuilding, right? So yes, they're going to build around Kenny Pickett, but their offensive line is not very strong. He doesn't have a lot of weapons. It's a bad situation to put rookies in these situations, and I give you Justin Fields as a great example. Justin Fields looks awful because there's nothing around Justin Fields to allow him to be even somewhat decent. And I think Kenny Pickett's in a very similar situation. So I am not grabbing him for fantasy football right now, unless, like you said, Dynasty League. Then yes, moving forward, he will be good. But right now, no.
Do we think there's any matchup? Like, let's keep in mind it was his first game, but it was the Jets, and he couldn't even pass for a touchdown. Do we think there's any matchup that Kenny Pickett you would trust starting him in, like on a waiver week or anything? Is there?
They play the Commanders.
Well, what about the Ravens? The Ravens defense has been shreddable.
Yeah.
Still no, huh?
I don't know. They're gonna fix that, I think. Yeah.
They'll get guys back from injury eventually. I don't know that they're going to be an elite unit like they used to be, but I don't know that Kenny Pickett is going to be shredding them.
Yeah. Fine. 2 points each. 2 points each. Moving on. Obviously, the big news in Denver was they have no offense after spending $80 billion on a quarterback. But no, that's not the really big news. The big news is that Javonte Williams is out for the year, which stinks. He was one of the guys I told, and I think we all did, we told you to target coming into this season. It's a shame. He's very talented. But here comes Melvin Gordon. Dutton, we'll start with you. Buy it or BS. Melvin Gordon can shoulder the load as an RB1 in fantasy.
BS. He's 29 years old with a lot of tread on his tires, and he has 4 fumbles already this year. 2 of them he's lost. He had -2 fantasy points last week, or -0.2, I should say. Sorry, but yeah, he again a bye week replacement as a flex maybe, but as a number one, I'm not even going near him as a number one running back.
Fee.
Well, I don't know that he's a number one running back, but I'm going to buy that he can shoulder the load because he's going to have to. And yes, he has fumbling problems, but there's no one to back him up anymore. They can't just pull him out of the game and be like, hey, you fumbled, you're not playing anymore, because they don't got anybody else. Okay. So Melvin Gordon's going to have to play, and he's going to have to learn to hold on to the ball, and maybe he will. But he's going to have to shoulder the load for them running the ball. And he's been decent when he has, when he's hold on to the ball anyway. He's had very similar numbers to Javonte Williams. They've been very close, about 50-50 split in everything they've done so far this year. And I mean, when you double him up like that, is he going to be able to hold up injury-wise? I don't know. Like Dutton said, he is 29 years old. He's getting older, a lot of wear on the tires. But I feel like they're going to have to try.
Yeah. What do you make of Mike Boone and Latavius Murray? Latavius Murray did look good last week. He's 32, right? If we're worried about Gordon being 29, we got a 22-year-old. I'm sorry, a 32-year-old that's on his second team in 48 hours. All right. I think that says enough. But what do we make of Mike Boone? Is this a guy you go out and pick up?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, has he done anything? Do we have any film on Mike Boone? Do we have?
Yeah, I don't know anything about Mike Boone.
He was the third. He was the third down back in what you said was a 50-50 split. So he was seeing the field, 4 or 5 times a game, right? So we know nothing about this guy. This guy could be the sneaky pick of the draft. I think he is a guy you target on waiver wire, but you have to not with the purpose of needing him, with the purpose of, if you have the room, this guy could be a pleasant fantasy goodness surprise.
Right.
I think I'm gonna go. This is a tough one because I think I'm gonna go with Fee on this one and give Fee. I'm gonna give Fee 3 points, but I am gonna give a point to Dunton because it was a tough pick. So it's 5-3 right now. But it's like you said with Boone and Murray, those guys are question marks, and Murray's only going to last a couple weeks before he breaks down. So he's not going to have a choice. He's going to be an RB1 volume wise, it seems, at this point. So we'll see what happens. Moving on to number 3, and buy it or BS. And we're only talking about this week because we don't know what the future holds. But Fee, we'll go back to you. Teddy Bridgewater is a solid start in fantasy football this week against the New York Jets. Buy it or BS, Fee?
I'm buying it. The Jets defense has been surprisingly good over the first 4 weeks of the season, and they may give the Dolphins a little bit of trouble on offense. But the fact of the matter is, he's got Tyreek Hill. I know Jalen Waddle's a bit hobbled, but they got weapons on offense. And, between Mostert and Chase Edmonds, they can, run the ball and get out of the backfield, and he can dump the ball off. Teddy Bridgewater is a good quarterback. And he's probably a solid guy to have as their backup there in Miami. So I'm buying it as a solid start this week if you're in a bind.
Dutton.
I'm buying it. I mean, they're playing the Jets, right? And they give up like 20.9 fantasy points to quarterbacks. And Fee said it, the weapons that the Dolphins have, he could easily put up a lot more than it. Or actually, they're ranked 20th against the quarterback, and they give up almost 24 points a week to fantasy quarterbacks. So if you need a quarterback, I mean, let's be honest, he's playing better than Derek Carr. And Derek Carr has an amazing offense. So I'm totally buying Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a crazy knee injury away from never mentioning Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, right? I mean, that's where we're at with this. Like, that's the only reason that Teddy Bridgewater has bounced around places, because of that crazy knee injury that happened in preseason a couple of years ago. He's a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's an amazing, great quarterback, but he's a good quarterback on a team that has weapons that he can utilize and get the ball to. So I'm totally buying it.
Your weekly reminder, this is Wednesday. Jalen Waddle was a DNP today, but they said it's pretty much nothing to worry about. It was a rest day because he has been nursing a groin, I believe. But 2 points for each of you. I mean, you got to start Bridgewater this week, and it's like you said. I think the one thing, not only does he have the weapons this week, he worked with them. Right, he hasn't been working with those guys.
Right.
He was thrown into the game. You could tell he was just like, I'm chucking it to Tyreek Hill and letting that guy run. Right. Like now he's going to be comfortable in the offense. You know how I feel about Chase Edmonds. I think Mostert is the guy. I think Edmonds should be slotting out. But and again, I agree with you both. I don't think we're going to get 35 points from Teddy Bridgewater, but I think this is, if the Jets are, you said the Jets are allowing about 20 points a game. I think that's an easy get for Teddy Bridgewater this week, at least. The next question. The Minnesota Vikings are the worst 3-1 team. There are 7 left. Remember, there's only one undefeated team left. This is why I'm going to the 3-1 team. So there's 7 3-1 teams. Of those 3-1 teams, the Minnesota Vikings are the worst 3-1 team in the NFL. Dutton, buy it or BS?
I am BSing that, and one of my co-hosts is not going to be happy, but I mean, the Giants are probably worse than the Vikings.
Yeah.
The Vikings beat the Packers, who are 3-1, who had to go to overtime against, what was that guy's name who played quarterback for the Patriots?
Yeah, Zappy.
Right?
Really?
I don't think
Blippy. Was it Blippy?
No, it's like Blaney or something, or yeah. Anyway, exactly that guy.
He was he was the Western Kentucky quarterback last year. He threw for like 8 million touchdowns. He had like a ridiculous season. But anyway, go ahead.
I just, they're not the worst 3-1 team. They should be a lot better with the offensive weapons that Kirk Cousins has. I'm not sure what the heck is going on in Minnesota. I mean, at least on this past Sunday in London, they remembered that Justin Jefferson was on the team. They tried to get him the ball early and often, but I don't think they're the worst. I mean, Saquon Barkley might be playing quarterback for the Giants this weekend. Let's just talk about that, right?
But doesn't that say something that the Vikings are fully healthy and the Giants aren't, and we're still having this conversation?
That is true. That is valid.
Fee, what do you think?
Yeah, it's BS. The Giants are without a doubt the worst 3-1 team there is currently in the NFL. We just talked about it. I don't want to make this about the Giants. This is about the Vikings. But the problem with the Vikings is it's Kirk Cousins, right? It's always been Kirk Cousins. And you're right. Justin Jefferson is on the team. And for whatever reason, Kirk Cousins can't get him the ball. And that seems silly to me. I don't know what the problem is. They have Dalvin Cook. They have Alexander Madison. They got 2 great wide receivers. What's wrong with the offense? I mean, what's the common denominator? It's Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
And they are not the worst 3-1 team. The Giants are, but the Vikings should really be so much better than they are. Just like you said, the Giants have 1,000 injuries everywhere. Offensive line, receivers, they're picking up guys off the street, and they're still 3-1. And the Vikings, they got their full complement of guys, and they just don't look nearly as good as they should.
I'm going to give you each 1 point because I think they are the worst 3-1 team in the league, and I'm going to tell you why. They should be 1-3. They lost on a play. They won against the Lions on a play where the Lions sold out and triple teamed Justin Jefferson, and there was a wide open KJ Osborne. Look at KJ Osborne's the stats outside of that drive this season. He had 2 28-yard catches. One was for the first down on 3rd down, and the other was for the game-winning touchdown. Outside of that, I don't even know if he has 28 yards. Okay, it was because the Lions sold out and triple teamed Justin Jefferson. And then what happened last week? A double plung on the field goal, right? And they had no business being in that game. They didn't have their starting quarterback. They didn't have their starting receiver, their number one Landry was dinged up, but he played. And they didn't have Kamara. They had no business. The Vikings should literally be 1-3, and they were that close. But it is funny that you said that because I want to give a shout out to Stan Becton. He's a writer at NCAA.com. He covers FCS football, and he tweeted last week. I was trying to find it, but I can't find it. That there's 3 quarterbacks three types of quarterback in the NFL. There's the elite, there's the young up and coming, and then there's the Kirk Cousins. And there's about 13 quarterbacks that are currently the Kirk Cousins of the league.
I can get down with that.
And it was, I wish I could find this tweet, but it was hilarious. And he broke down each Kirk Cousins and like, it was a great tweet, but and he's right? You have those 8 or 9 elite quarterbacks. You have the young guys that you really don't know what to make out of yet, and then you just have the Kirk Cousinses of the league that are just there and they keep getting it done barely.
Hey, real quick. I read this one stat this week. Since we're talking about hypotheticals, the Baltimore Ravens have been trailing this year for 14 seconds, and they're 2-2.
Wow, really?
That's crazy.
That is crazy. Crazy stats. That's a good stat, Fee.
That is.
We're going to wrap up Buy It or BS on a sad note because the question has to revolve around a fantasy football breakdown favorite. Is Allen Robinson actually washed, and is it time to drop him in your redraft leagues? Buy it or BS, Fee?
I'm buying it. He doesn't look like the Allen Robinson of old, which is crazy to think about because he was so good with the Bears with such terrible quarterback play. And you thought that maybe the change of scenery would just enhance, his play, except that, he went to a better team with a better quarterback and better everything. And all of a sudden his play just kind of dropped. Yeah. And I think, I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's just too old and he's lost a step or two or what the problem is, but he does not look like the same Allen Robinson of the last 4 or 5 years. And I think it's probably time that you drop him. Only if you can get something really good back, because you never know. Maybe something happens. It's early in the season. Maybe something changes with the Rams. Maybe something changes with him. Maybe he gets healthier or something. So it's not a terrible idea to hold on to him. But if you need help, and there are guys on the waiver wire that you can pick up, then he's absolutely a drop.
Dutton.
I'm buying it, but not because of what Fee said. I'm buying it because Matthew Stafford only looks for Cooper Kupp. That's the only player he looks to throw the ball to. I think if Allen Robinson was on another team, I think he would be the Allen Robinson that we know and love. But Matthew Stafford only looks to throw the ball to Cooper Kupp. I mean, it is insane. Or now, every now and again, he'll throw to Tyler Higbee. But
Higbee's becoming a solid player, but to your case, Dutton, I don't know that Higbee's that good because he wasn't used last year. I think it's that Robinson can't get open.
I mean, I'm looking at his targets, though. He's not even being targeted. He was targeted twice, 5 times, and 6 times. So,
and I think the majority of them, I could be wrong, but it seems like, because I didn't look at this, this is just what from watching the Rams. It seems like a lot of those plays are in the red zone, right? And he can't, they're like the fades to the corner and he can't get there, right? And he's just not getting that ball. And that's an Allen Robinson, that's an Allen Robinson staple, that play, right?
Yeah. To your point, Wayne, you're right. He's just not getting open.
Yeah.
But the part of the reason why he's not getting targets is because he's just not getting open. And if you don't get a step or two on a guy, it's hard for a quarterback to rifle it in there to you when he thinks that a defender is going to jump in front and, pick it off, especially the way Stafford's been throwing the ball and the interceptions he's already thrown this year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other problem, right? But Dutton, you are right. Like we saw it last year, all Stafford did was look at Cooper Kupp until they got OBJ, right? Like they need that guy, but it doesn't seem like Allen Robinson's him. I'm going to give you both 3 points. I think that leads to a tie, our first tie of the year, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations, Fee and Dutton. You've tied. That means you're 2-2-1 on the season. This is going to be an exciting year, right down to the wire, and Buy It or BS. But that brings us to the second down, Calvin Ridley's locks of the week. It's sad to say that our Lions did lose last week, so the fantasy football breakdown picked up their first loss. But we do need to mention the fact that they dropped 45 points without their starting number 1 or number 2 receiver and without DeAndre Swift, who's a top 10 running back in fantasy football. This team still dropped 45 points. Can you make the argument that the Lions are actually better than the Vikings that we just talked about? At least our offense. They play no defense, right? Let's get to the bottom line.
They're a Big 12 team, the Lions. They're a Big 12 team.
It's just if they have the ball last, they're going to win. That's the problem. They got to figure out a way to get the ball last. And
be in a close game.
Right. But they're always in a close game.
Yeah.
So let's jump into this week's picks. Again, fantasy football breakdown. We lost with the Lions. We are now 3-1 overall on the year. I'll break down real quick what everybody is. Fee, you went with the Dolphins last week, so you lost. You're now 3-4 because, of course, you don't listen to the rules and made multiple picks every week. Dunton, you went with the Lions, so you dropped right? You went with the Lions, right? So you dropped a game, so you're 2-2. But I went with the Falcons. I went with the gutsy Falcons call, and they delivered. So I'm 3-1 on the year. We'll start with Fee this week. Fee, what do you like for your lock of the week?
I am going with the Green Bay Packers at -7.5 against the Giants in London. The Giants have a quarterback problem. If Daniel Jones plays, he's going to be hobbled. If he doesn't play, I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. They don't have any wide receivers. Sure, they got Saquon, but I don't think it's going to matter. The favorite that has gone on to play in London, I think, is 2-0 this year.
How could that be? They've only played one game then.
They've only played one game in London?
Yeah. Last week was the first
sure about that? All right, fine. Well, the favorite covered the spread in that game.
Yes.
And so I am going to go with the Packers, even though they're giving 7.5 points.
And as Dutton and I discussed last week, that is the first time a London game has pitted two winning teams against each other. So there's high stakes across the pond this week. Dutton, who are you taking?
I'm taking the Eagles -5 against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are terrible. I mean, they're not very good. Yes, they beat the Panthers, but the Panthers are awful. And the Eagles will probably be 5-0. And if I'm wrong, then the Eagles lost the game, and I'm okay with that too. So
I'm going with the Cowboys getting 5 points for some reason. And I want to double check it because it doesn't make sense. Before I say this, again, this is Wednesday night. Remember the spreads we're talking about. But the Lions, I go directly to the Lions, and I'm looking up the Cowboys.
You're looking at the lines. That's why.
The lines. Yeah, the Cowboys are at the Rams, and they're getting 5 points. This is obviously the battle of the Coops. Cooper Rush versus Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp obviously has a great game, but the Cowboys have looked good with Cooper Rush. I don't think they've missed a beat. I know the Rams defense is good against the run, which might hurt, the Zeke and Pollard the two-headed monster, but 5 points, I feel like this game's coming down to a field goal. I don't care who wins, but I think it's going to be decided by a field goal, which puts me in the money. So I'm going Cowboys +5. Who do we like? And the Lions are getting 3 against the Patriots. Does this make sense to anyone with right? Hoyer's out and Mac Jones, but they're both out, right?
Yep.
And that's how little faith Vegas has in the Lions?
I think they're going off the fact that the Patriots took the Packers to overtime in Lambeau.
Fair.
You know what I'm saying? With that rookie backup third string quarterback.
Yeah.
Do they have a backup quarterback if he gets hurt? I don't know if they do.
I'm sure, it's like their punter or something. It's a Bill Belichick. Remember when Tom Tuchel played quarterback that one?
Yep.
Yeah, it just seems odd to me. I mean, I kind of like the Lions getting 3. But who are we penciling in as our fantasy football breakdown lock of the week?
I mean, I like Philly.
I do too.
Okay, Eagles it is.
Because none of us are high on the Cardinals fans, so it's hard to not. I do think that game could get a lot of points. In the words of Fanduel Fee, I think there could be a lot of fantasy goodness in that game. But I do think the Eagles prevail quite heavily, especially with Marquise Brown missing practice today.
Yep.
But again, midweek missing practice. Again, this is a Wednesday show. Midweek missing practice is usually not too much to worry about. But all All right, so let's move on to FanDuel Fees, Fatty Back, Daddy Stacks of the week. What do you got for us this week?
All right. I am going to start us off with the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Houston Texans. I like Trevor Lawrence this week and Christian Kirk if you're going to stack them. And it wouldn't be terrible to bring it back with a Brandon Cooks. I know the Jags defense has been very good this year. But Davis Mills and Brandon Cooks kind of have a thing going. And I feel like no one's going to be on that. I also really like Jimmy G and Deebo Samuel against Carolina. Dutton talked about how the Panthers are a terrible team. They are. Garoppolo and Deebo are also fairly cheap. Garoppolo is down at 7,000, Deebo at 7,300. I also like Tom Brady this week. Angry Tom with the news of the pending divorce, going against Atlanta, and you stack him with Mike Evans because I'm not sold on Godwin being fully healthy just yet. Brady's 7,800, really not all that expensive. Mike Evans down at 7,500, also not terrible, especially going up against that Atlanta team. And my last stack, I like Teddy Bridgewater. We spoke about him earlier, and Tyreek Hill going against the Jets. Teddy's only 6,400, really kind of opens up salary for you. Although Tyreek is up at 8,400. I just like that stack. You're not really going to get much better going forward, even if they play well or if Tua comes back, that salary is going to go up. So Teddy and Tyreek this week. Something to note, teams not on the main slate. The Cincinnati Bengals, who have picked that up as of late. So no Burrow, no Mixon, no Jamar Chase, no T. Higgins. The Packers are not on the main slate. Otherwise, you might end up going with like an Aaron Rodgers or an Aaron Jones or even an Alan Lazard. And the Chiefs are not on the main slate. So no Mahomes, no Kelsey, no Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And some single guys that I like off the cuff. I really like Kareem Hunt. He's priced down at 5,900. Nick Chubb has gotten a ton of work. Hunt, they really didn't do much last week, so people might be off him, but they're playing the Chargers this week with no Nick Bosa. Is it Nick Bosa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's out. And so the Chargers D has not been all that great, while their offense has been great. So I really like Kareem Hunt, even if it's garbage time, priced down at 5,900. Breece Hall for the Jets has gotten tons and tons of work. He looked really good last week. He's at 6,600. He could be a possible bring back if you're going to go with the Miami stack. David Njoku is a solid tight end at 5,700. Also in that Browns-Chargers game. Chris Olave for the Saints against Seattle, whose secondary has been a sieve this year. He's priced at 6,900, so I'm not sure who their quarterback is, but I don't think it's going to matter. I don't really care if it's Winston or if it's the Red Rifle. And since we talked about it last week and there was a question about a defense, one that came to mind is the Cowboys at 4,100, who have looked very, very good this year. Their pass rush has been exceptional, and the Rams have not been able to stop people from sacking Stafford, who also has thrown, I think, top 3 or 4 in interceptions this year. So the Cowboys D is at 4,100 on FanDuel. They're kind of priced near the middle of the pack, maybe a little higher. So they're a solid defense to play.
I would personally have zero problem paying up $5,000 for the Buffalo Bills against the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. They could easily 4 times that against what we're going to see on the Steelers. They could pull a 20-point day and make that a value even at 5,000 for a defense. But I do like the rest of those picks. So I got a question for you. What do you think? We talked about the possibility. Is the Eagles stack, is that just too much money? Is that kind of why you stayed away from it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you could absolutely do it. The Eagles are a solid team this week for sure. Jalen Hurts has been, like gangbusters this year. He would be a solid play in and of itself. AJ Brown also been really, really good. You could absolutely stack those guys, but you're going to pay a pretty penny for both of them. So it's really going to hamstring you for the rest of your lineup. And I didn't really get a good chance to look at to see if there were any really good values out there. I did see Kareem Hunt at 5,900, so he's a bit of a salary saver, but you'd really need like one or two other guys also to save you salary to be able to get up to Hurts and AJ Brown if you were to do that.
What would you think about Michael Gallup at 6,000? Do you think he's ready to come back into a trustworthy role yet?
He maybe in a GPP, right? Like if you're playing cash, I'd say absolutely not. Only because you got CeeDee Lamb. It's still Cooper Rush. I know he's been solid, but I don't know that he's going to be able to, spread the ball around that like they would need for him to do. Maybe in a GPP where you were just hoping, on a whim where like, maybe they double team CeeDee Lamb and Gallup is running wild all day long. and that kind of puts it over for you. I'm sure he'll go lesser owned than most receivers. So in a GPP, I would say absolutely. In a cash game, I'd say probably not.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was just looking at a guy that was kind of in that $6,000 range. All right. Well, thank you, Fanduel Fee. We're moving on to the red zone, and we're going to give you our starts and sits of the week. 2 weeks ago, we were on fire. Last week, we did all right. We could have done a lot better. Joe Burrow, we told you to start. He's on the night slate this week. So as Fee mentioned, he couldn't mention him. He's got another juicy matchup. Jamal Williams, we told you to start. He did fantastic. Amari Cooper, we told you to start, and he was the 90th ranked wide receiver with that one big reception for 6 yards, I think it was. So that was a miss. And then Robert Tonyan, we told you to start, and he got in the end zone and was in the top 12 of tight ends. So that's the kind of guy you want scoring. We told you to bench Matthew Stafford. That turned out to be right because he threw an interception and fumbled again and was running for his life and got sacked, 7 times? And then we missed everywhere else. We told you to sit Dobbins. He got in the end zone. I still think he's very touchdown dependent, but he did get that touchdown. We told you to sit DK Metcalf. And he finally went off. Had a big week. And we told you to sit Higbee. And like we said, Stafford just has no one else to throw to. And in a standard league, he was probably still a sit, to be honest with you. But in a PPR league, he had those 7 receptions. So I think it was 7 receptions for 70 yards. All of a sudden, a standard league, you go from a 7-point day to a 15-point day, and you're looking pretty. So Higbee was definitely worth the start next week. Now, before we get into our starts and the sits of this week, we have a fantasy question of the week from longtime listener Anthony. He wanted to know, do we start Jared Goff versus the Patriots or Aaron Rodgers versus the Giants this week? Dutton, what do you think?
Jared Goff. We just talked about it. The Lions, every game they play is in the 40s, I feel like. So
he had his best week of the season with no Amon-Ra St. Brown and no DJ Shark, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers said it, I think it was yesterday or today, that their offense is not sustainable for the whole year because their offense, and we talked about it last week, I believe, how predictable it is, right? Yeah. So it's
kudos to the Packers, though. They actually scored 17 points in the second half last week after we said they hadn't even scored that all year.
Right. Yeah, I would start Jared Goff. I just think, the Lions are not going to stop many teams, but they're going to score very often. Plus, he has TJ Hawkinson, who has become a premier tight end. Like, we love him, but last week he showed out. He was like the number 1 fantasy scorer of everybody last week, I think.
He was up there. Hey.
I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. If there was ever a week where you wanted to fade the Lions and Jared Goff, this would be the week. Everyone's talking about why New England has been halfway decent when they don't have any quarterback play, and it's because of their defense. Their defense happens to be very good. They're still, Bill Belichick led, And I don't know what the injury situation is with the Detroit receivers. And I know you said that it didn't really matter last week. Well, it's going to matter this week against the Patriots. The Patriots are not the other teams that the Lions have been playing where they've been scoring 45 points a week. So I don't think that's going to happen this week. And I don't know if you were all forgetting or not, but Aaron Rodgers are playing the Giants, and the Packers are playing the Giants. The Giants give up points. They give up yards. They may stay in the game and, give them a tough time. But they're not an elite defense by any means. They're not an elite team by any means. And again, if there was ever a week where it would be the week to play him, this is the week that you want to play Aaron Rodgers.
Fair enough. I think pending on the health of those receivers, it's Jared Goff. I do agree with you that this is probably the tougher defenses that they play, but the Patriots we're going to talk about in a little bit, they're terrible against the tight end, and that's a huge advantage for Goff, especially if Amon Rob or just one of them are back to take some of the pressure off on the outside. They are good against the run, so Jamal Williams obviously isn't going to do what he did last week. He had that monster day, but I still think I think Goff is the guy here. And kind of going with what Dunton said, Aaron Rodgers himself isn't confident in that offense. I don't know that this is the week to start him across the pond. It just seems like
he's complaining that they're not there long enough.
Right.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's going to be an Aaron Rodgers letdown game. So I'm going Jared Goff. So
that's all smoke and mirrors. All that Rodgers BS that he's shoving out there this week.
That's all he does is throw it out there. Okay, so let's get into it. Starts and sits at quarterback. Dunton, we'll start with you.
I'm starting Tom Brady. If you mentioned him before, he's 9-0 regular season against the Falcons. He's 1-0 postseason. He's 10-0 lifetime against the Falcons. He'll be 11-0 after this week. I'm starting Tom Brady. I think Chris Godwin is a lot healthier than he's been in a long time. He's not 100%, but he's a lot closer than he's been. Mike Evans is a red zone touchdown machine. And yeah, I mean, and Fee, you said it. He's angry at the world right now. So,
angry Tom. Don't feed him.
Right.
Fee, how about you?
I'm starting Jimmy G this week against Carolina, and really it's just because they're playing Carolina.
That's fair. I'm going with Joe Burrow. The Ravens are allowing 26.5 points per game to the quarterback. That's 30th in fantasy football. That is not good. Joe Burrow is going to have to be throwing because I think what we're learning, as Dut and I discussed last week, is Joe Mixon sucks. The guy's averaging 2.8 yards a carry this year. He got in the end zone, and that was really the only reason he had a good week last week. So I think it's the Joe Burrow show. We'll talk a little bit more about this in just a moment. But, guys, who do we want to lock in as our quarterback?
Brady. I like them all. But
yeah, I like Brady. I'm good with Brady.
Yeah.
The Brady Evans stack, actually, when you were talking about it, was something I already had my eyes on. So let's go Brady. Let's go to running back. And Fee, we'll start with you here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ramondre Stevenson against the Lions. New England's going to have to run the ball. And while, yes, they have Damian Harris, if Detroit were to give them trouble on offense and score a whole bunch of points, Ramondre is kind of the receiving back in that offense. And I feel like he's going to get more of the volume and more of the touches this week against Detroit.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Dutton.
I'm going with Dameon Pierce against the Jaguars. They're 25th against the run. They're giving up 21.8 points per game to running backs. And if the Texans have any shot of being in this game and possibly winning this game, they're going to give the ball to him a lot. So I'm going with Dameon Pierce.
I agree with that too. And I'm going to go on the opposite side of that because the Texans allow 25.5 points per game, which is dead last in fantasy, to the running back. And I'm going James Robinson. I know he fumbled last week. I know it wasn't pretty, but that was also a sloppy game, like a weather-wise. And Robinson has looked great. It's not, Peterson has trust in him. It's not like he's going away because he had one bad week and the Texans can't stop anybody. I watched that Bears game and both Justin Fields and Khalil Herbert had the longest rushes of their career and both in the same game. So James Robinson's going to feast on this defense. I honestly like all three of these guys. I was actually leaning a little bit towards Ramondre Stevenson, but I'm good with anyone. What do you guys think?
Let's go with Robinson because we love him so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like J-Rob.
Okay. I'll start with wide receiver because I said I would talk about it in a little bit. And I'm going to look this up so I don't speak incorrectly. But when I looked earlier, this fella was most likely a first round draft pick. And he was ranked, I believe, in the 20s, and that's Jamar Chase. So he is a question mark right now if you start him or not. Hold on, this is taking forever to load. I wanted to get you the exact number. In a PPR setting, Jamar Chase is currently, wow, where is he?
He's not even on a leaderboard.
No, this is just the top 10. Well, he's not in the top 10 and my computer's taking too long. Anyway, in the PPR league, he's not in the top 10. And he's, like we said, he's a first round quarterback, I think, against this Ravens offense. T. Higgins is there. He's fine. Hayden Hurst actually looks very nice at tight end, but I think this is the week that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase get that magic back and maybe one of those big 200-yard days that we saw last year. Dutton, how about you?
I'm going with Romeo Doubs. I mean, he has 2 weeks in a row where he's had 8 targets, and the only reason he didn't have a bigger week last week is because the ground caused a fumble as he was falling into the end zone on like a beautiful 40-yard pass that he caught but couldn't control all the way to the ground. But I think Aaron Rodgers has found his number 2 wide receiver in Romeo Doubs. I don't know if he's the number 1 yet because I don't think he has a number 1. I guess it would be Lazard. But Romeo Doubs is 2 weeks in a row, 8 targets. He's had 2 weeks in a row. He has a touchdown. Giants are giving up about 19 points per game to wide receivers. So I'm going with Doubs.
Before you go, Fee, my computer finally loaded. Jamar Chase is the 18th best wide receiver in fantasy football in a PPR format through 4 weeks. Back to you, Fee.
Look up T. Higgins for me real quick.
T. Higgins is number 12 in a PPR format.
Okay, so I am starting T. Higgins this week, and it's for the same reasons you just spoke about Jamar Chase, because the Ravens secondary is absolutely terrible, and they're very good against the run, so Burrow's going to have to chuck it. I think both of these guys can have very good games, but the thing is, T. Higgins has really turned into Cincinnati's number 1 guy, and I don't know if that's because Jamar Chase is getting doubled or what the issue is, but T. Higgins is getting more catches, more targets, and more yards than Jamar Chase this year. And I'm going to start T. Higgins this week.
I think Higgins is just one of those Tim Browns, right? Like he's the reliable guy. Jamar Chase has the big play excitingness to him, and he's great. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's like you said, the guy that's going to get peppered with targets is seems like it's always going to be Higgins, right?
Yep.
I'm good with any one of these guys. I like the way Dubs is playing, and obviously I like Chase and Higgins. So what do you guys think?
I like Higgins. I think he's going to have more targets, and I mean he still breaks away from defenders.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying he's
I'm not saying you're not. Like he's still like somehow like he always seems to find an extra gear when you think he's about to be tackled. All of a sudden he's in front of the guy and gone. So let's go. I mean the Ravens can't stop anybody right now. So
nope. All right, I'm good with that. Tight end.
George Kittle, if he knows how to get his feet down, he has a touchdown last week. They're playing the Panthers. This could be the last game coached by their awful coach that should have never been hired a year ago. I don't know. I mean, he's got to be on the hot seat, right? That seat's got to be super hot by this point, right?
I mean, does the owner even care, right?
I don't think he does. I don't think he does.
Yeah.
George Kittle.
Fee.
I'm going with Tyler Higbee. We spoke about him earlier. He had a great week last week. And
right over there. Where'd you go? I saw the top of your head for a second.
Sorry, I dropped my pen. And I think he continues that this week with Dallas and their crazy good pass rush. I think that Stafford's going to have to dump the ball off, and I think Higbee's going to be a big beneficiary of that.
Yeah, he's there underneath because, like we said, Allen Robinson isn't, right? Allen Robinson's that dink and dunk guy, and he can't dink and dunk anymore. I'm going to tell you, look, the Patriots have allowed the most touchdowns to a tight end this year. They've allowed a touchdown to a tight end every week this season, How are we not going to start the tight end touchdown TD King, TJ Hawkinson? That's my pick last week. He exploded. That's my pick this week. He's going to have a monster week. Even if the Patriots take everything out of that game, they cannot stop the tight end. He's going to have a monster week. I'm always against George Kittle. We said this last week. He's not getting the targets. He's the injury bug always scares me about him. And Hawkinson and Higbee, I just think have much stronger matchups. So which one do we like?
We gotta go with touchdown TJ.
Touchdown TJ, touchdown King. What is it?
There you go. All right. So to review our starts, Brady at quarterback, James Robinson at running back, T. Higgins at wide receiver, and TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Let's move on. This sits, gentlemen. Fee, we'll start with you because that was my first pick, but I did come up with a second one because you picked him first. So go ahead.
So I'm gonna sit Matthew Stafford. We just spoke about it. Dallas's pass rush very, very good on the season, forces turnovers. Stafford is prone to turnovers. I think you got to sit him this week.
I mean, they're going to be in the backfield all day long, it feels like, right? Like the way after what they did to the Giants and the way the Rams offensive line looked. I know they weren't healthy. I don't know what the situation is and who they're getting back this week, but man, they're going to be in that backfield all day long. Dutton.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk about Matthew Stafford as well, so I think we know where we're going with this. But I'm also sitting Russell Wilson. I mean, he only has 4 touchdowns this entire year. Like, the Broncos paid a ton of money for a guy who's not doing much. I mean, last week he had 33 points, Gus, because he had 29 yards rushing and another touchdown rushing. But in terms of passing, I mean, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I'm not really sure what's happening. I don't know if the offense hasn't clicked. I don't know if Russell Wilson, maybe the Seahawks were right in getting rid of him. Maybe they were like, it's time to go before you make us even worse. So,
and I'm just going to take a quote from my brother, but I've never seen a guy look more disinterested in playing football than Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Everyone blamed it on Seattle last year, but maybe he's just done with football.
Right? He might be. Right.
I mean, he's too good. I don't believe fantasy wise, but everyone believes in Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. They have the talent there. Up until this week, they had 2 good running backs. You have all the offensive firepower. The defense is giving you all the opportunity to win games 35-10.
Right.
And you're eking out victories,
Yeah.
So since Fee took Stafford, and on top of everything we said about the Cowboys, are also allowing only 12.1 points per game to the quarterback this year from a fantasy standpoint. But I'm a believer in this Eagles defense. And we've seen Kyler Murray in these big kind of games get a little erratic. And when the run is taken away, which the Eagles are good at stopping, when the run's taken away and he has to actually sit in the quarterback the pocket and make quarterback decisions, Kyler Murray gets in trouble. That's not to say he always finds a way to get 2 touchdowns. He always finds a way to get 200 total yards. He'll probably do that, but I don't think it's going to be a Kyler Murray standout day. All that's to say that I think we know that the answer to this question for the week is Matthew Stafford. So lock him in as your sit of the week.
You should just start Micah Parsons instead of
he'll be in the backfield more than Stafford will. Dutton, we'll start with you on running back.
Najee Harris against the Bills. I mean, it's the Bills are, you said it. This seriously could be a shutout, right? That defense, rookie quarterback, lock it in on, don't let the running back do anything, so you make the quarterback win the game. Yeah, Najee Harris.
And Fee.
I'm sitting Ezekiel Elliott this week against the very stout Rams defense against the run. They are top 5 against the run on defense. And while the Cowboys have been winning games with the run, it's really been more Cooper Rush, slinging it than them actually running the ball very well. And, especially against the Rams defense this week, I think you need to sit Zeke.
Yeah, the Rams defense is good against. If they do something right, it's against the run. I'm going to tell you, I think he's going to be a hot start this week. Rashaad Penny. I'm sorry. He had a very nice week last week. The Saints aren't the Vikings. I'm sorry, the Lions, who they played last week. I was going to mention that the Saints did play the Vikings, and they held Dalvin Cook in check. Madison didn't do anything, so the Saints rush defense, they faced off against a pretty viable must start kind of guy and locked them down. So I think a lot of people will be on Penny. On top of that, again, this is Wednesday, it's midweek, but he was a DNP at practice, and I wasn't even aware that he was hurt. So that is an inch when they're a DNP midweek and they had no injury prior to that. That's a question mark in my book. So I would tell you to sit Penny. Who do we think we're going to sit overall this week? I'm good going out on a limb with Dunton and going Najee Harris because he was a first round early pick, and you don't really ever say to sit that, but I think you do have to this week.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right, going on to wide receiver. I'm going to tell you to sit Michael Pittman. The Broncos defense are the best against wide receivers, which is one thing. And the second thing is on the Colts, nobody stepped up, right, to take the pressure off Michael Pittman being that number one. We've talked about how Michael Pittman and Matt Ryan have this chemistry, but there's nobody else on the team to throw to. Yeah, Mo Ali Cox had 2 touchdowns last week. That was a unicorn for him. Has he had 2 touchdowns in his career, right? Up until that point, that was a big game. The week before, Jelani Woods had the 2 touchdowns. It's too inconsistent, and there's not enough consistency away from Michael Pittman to take that Broncos defense away from him. Dutton.
I'm sitting DJ Moore because I don't even know who's playing quarterback this week for the Panthers, because why would you even start Baker Mayfield? His QBR is 25.
Yeah, that's higher than I thought it was.
Yeah, and I mean, yes, he had 11 targets last week. 6 of them were catches for 50 yards, but how much of that was in garbage time? I mean, because that game was over by halftime, I feel like.
Very true.
Yeah, I'm sitting DJ Moore.
And I am sitting all of your Steeler wide receivers against the Buffalo defense.
Steelers are winning this game, obviously, right?
Because we keep talking about it, right?
No way, no chance. Rookie quarterback going into Buffalo, playing against an angry Buffalo team with a really, really good defense. I just don't see it happen.
Yeah. Who do we want to lock in? I'm good with locking in DJ Moore because he should be starting every week, and right now he shouldn't be.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Tight end, Dutton.
I'm sitting Mr. Pitts from the Falcons against the Bucks. I think that Bucks defense is a little angry about the way the Chiefs manhandled them, but some of that was due to the fact that Tom Brady kept giving the Chiefs the ball in really good field position. I mean, the Bucks scored 31 points, but they let up 41. But I don't know if Marcus Mariota and Patrick Mahomes even hang out, let alone you should mention them in the same sentence. And I don't think Kyle Pitts has a very strong day. And again, Falcons don't even remember that they have Kyle Pitts because they drafted him to block.
That's what I was going to throw in there. I mean, the targets aren't even there. It's not like he's just they're even looking at him and he's not getting up. He's just not getting targets. It's crazy. But I mean, we saw this for years with Julio Jones, right?
Yep.
They got in the red zone and they forgot that he existed. I know it was a completely different coaching regime, but still, it's just weird. Fee.
I was actually going to go with Kyle Pitts because he hasn't done shit all year long. And it's really annoying that they're wasting away his talent because he is the most athletic tight end I've ever seen. And he's doing nothing but blocking, like you said. So it's terrible. But since Dutton went with Pitts, I'm going with Will Dissly. He's been one of the better tight ends this year, but I think against the Saints defense, I don't like the tight end against the Saints defense, so I think you got to sit him this week.
I'm going to tell you to sit Freiermuth, and I hate to say it because he's great. The Bills are number 2 in fantasy against the tight end, but they're number 1 against the quarterback overall. So Pickett is going to have a rough introduction to starterdom in real life, and he kind of, like we mentioned, he did find Freiermuth a few times at the end of the game, but he was all Pickens all day long. I mean, that's who he was throwing to. So I think if it comes down to that, we normally talk about how the rookie quarterback loves the tight end. I don't think he's going to have that opportunity on Sunday. So who do we want to lock in here? I'm good with going with Pitts because he's just not getting the volume.
Okay. That's 3 sits for Dutton. Be careful, friends.
So to review, Stafford at quarterback, Najee Harris at running back, DJ Moore at wide receiver, and Kyle Pitts at tight end. That wraps it up, gentlemen. Anything to add before we sign off for the week?
Nope. Good luck.
Good luck to the Giants with their starting quarterback Saquon Barkley this week.
Woo!
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch.
That could be happening, and yeah, it'll be interesting.
All right, we'll see you next week. Maybe with real fee, maybe with paper bag fee. It's going to be an exciting roller coaster every week from here on out, ladies and gentlemen. Go win some money and have a good week. We'll see you next week.